Sok szeretettel köszöntöm nézőinket a Budapesti Nemzetközi Dokumentumfilmfesztiválon. Ezt a virtuális beszélgetést én fogom vezetni most. Gellér Varga Zsuzsanna vagyok, dokumentumfilmes, és a Isten hozott Csecsenföldön című filmről fogunk beszélgetni a film rendezőjével, David France-szel, aki itt van velünk már ebben a virtuális kis stúdióban. Ha jól mennének a dolgok, akkor most szemtől szembe állnánk egymással a mozi termében a vetítés után, de így legalább sokkal többen nézhetik meg ezt a beszélgetést. Hi, David.
Hi.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us about the film.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I read that you found this story through a New Yorker article in 2017, and you're an investigative journalist as well, and you have made many films about gay rights before. And I was wondering, like, how did you gain the trust of the people so much that they let you in the safe house, which was a very dangerous situation and site?
Well, luckily, I knew the author of the piece in the New Yorker, Masha Gessen, an investigative journalist, a political journalist, a Russian exile also. And Masha had been to the safe houses and had done their reporting right from inside the network. So I reached out to Masha, and they reached out on my behalf to Olga Baranova, who was running the main shelter. Olga was interested in at least speaking about the possibility of continuing this kind of coverage and support through the media of the work that she and her colleagues were undertaking. But she was pretty convinced it was not going to be possible to find a way to do it safely. She invited me to come and talk with her. So I flew to Moscow and met with her and with my local producer, Askold Kurov, just to begin a conversation about how this might be possible. And, you know, obviously we couldn't bring camera crews around to any of the houses or apartments that they were stashing people in, because that would certainly draw attention. So we had to, you know, at the very beginning, at the very least, we had to find a way to conceal cameras and to use non-professional cameras, no sound team, a very small footprint. Just the discussion about how to get in and out of the system consumed most of our first meeting. And after that, it was really about how we could develop strategies and protocols that would safeguard the material that we were shooting in case anybody detained us or somehow intercepted what it was we were working on, and what we would do ultimately to protect the identities of everybody who needed protection, who would agree to be in the film, would allow us to take that journey with them. And those conversations literally consumed the next 2 years.
So you didn't start basically filming for 2 years?
Well, we did start filming right away, but with a very small number of people.
Was it just you or other people as well on the side?
It was me and Askold, who was operating the main camera, which was a small consumer video camera, a little Sony kind of tourist handycam. And we had two of them. We left one of them in the shelter so that we would no longer have to carry them in and out. We could just go there and use the camera. And I was shooting in addition on a cell phone as the kind of B camera. And we began conversations and negotiations with numerous survivors of this atrocity from Chechnya in the south of Russia about how we would protect them and what we would be doing and how we would approach these various hurdles and challenges as we were preparing the film for release. So that's what I meant by this conversation over 2 years. We had provisional approvals from people that we needed to bring back to them over and over and over, because they needed to approve at multiple levels of the project. And it wasn't until the very end, with their approvals for our technique, which was well after we finished shooting and well after we had edited the film, that we got their sign-offs on their belief that they were being kept safe and defended in the film, that nothing the film was doing was going to make their lives already so difficult any more difficult.
Right. This technique of you that you're using is very special, this digital transplant thing, that you call it digital transplant, right?
Right.
It's absolutely unique. I've never seen it done before. How did you come up with this idea, and why did you choose to do this and not the regular blurring the face or, you know, just making them unrecognizable some other ways?
Well, I promised the people who were in the film that I was going to lift up their lives and humanity. I mean, their humanity had been so ripped away from them that I wanted to invite an audience across the globe to experience kind of the pain and the joy at times even of the journeys that they were taking, and none of the techniques that documentaries have used in the past really allowed that. The blurring of the face really was reductive. It kind of eliminated all of those kind of necessary emotional cues that you get from people's micro expressions. I tried using bars across eyes or Snapchat functions that would allow me to put, like a bunny nose on a face that would disguise it. But it really intervened with this main mission, which was to be able to restore a certain sort of autonomy and strength and humanity to the people who had survived the torture and the near-death experiences that they experienced in Chechnya. And so I kept ejecting and rejecting, all of the approaches. I tried a complicated but established technique of filtering them so that they become kind of cartoons, so that they would appear to be more kind of two-dimensional renderings of themselves, but that still made them look like themselves. It didn't really disguise them. And what they made me understand was that this disguise had to work at what we started to call it the highest standard, which was that even their own mothers wouldn't be able to recognize them. And that's when we realized that we'd have to replace the face altogether. And that seemed like an impossible kind of, dreamed up solution. But it turned out that there were people already in the VFX world who were contemplating such a thing. And we were lucky enough to pair with Ryan Laney and his company, willing to give this a try on a feature-length documentary in which over 100 minutes of the film have people disguised in them. So it was the challenge was immense, and the fact that he was willing to give it a try was really, showed his kind of bravery and boldness.
Yes, it's wonderful how it works on so many levels, because it is actually a disguise that makes them unrecognizable. You can see it when the face melts away from Grisha and then he turns into Maxim, that it's an absolutely different face. So there is no way, because when you start to watch them, you think that, okay, maybe they are a little bit similar, but they are not. They are totally different, which makes you feel better as a viewer, because then you think that their disguise is really protected, or their identities are really protected.
We made a conscious decision to bring in volunteers, the people who lent those are real faces. Those are other people. We went to a group of activists. We needed 23 faces. So we went to a group of people and we picked them out. We kind of did casting off of their social media by finding faces that looked really literally nothing like the faces that we wanted to cover. But their eye to nose to mouth ratio was very similar. Their body weight was very similar. And often what we did was we kind of crossed racial lines. And so, for example, the person who is lending his face to protect Grisha when Grisha still needed to be disguised is of Mexican origin. And he carries with him kind of the indigenous features of that are common to be seen in Mexico, and those are so confounding when you put them on the face of a a Russian
boy. Yes, a Russian.
that
Blue-eyed.
It just throws the whole thing off.
Yes,
And that's what we were looking for, and I think accomplished. And in some cases, we even switched genders on the faces.
That's
and you don't notice it, but what you do notice is the face is totally unique. And I know, because I know the faces that are underneath there, totally distinct from the faces that they're covering.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to take up all the time in the discussion with that, because it's fascinating technique. And just one last thing about that it's really good that they don't look very, very real in a way, because if they looked really real, like you could say that it's not their real face, but if they looked real, then it would be like cheating, or it would feel more alienating, because then you didn't think that they are protected. But this way, that is very subtle, you can see the lines where they blend into their own face. That makes it just easier to understand what's going on. So
absolutely. And we added that. We made sure that was there, because we wanted you to know that.
That's great.
We wanted you to see that these people were, when you watch a film that uses standard techniques of black bar or blurring, that tells you that there's real danger for those people.
Right.
And that's an important message for you to carry. We wanted you to carry that in this film also. So we kind of
it's absolutely clear.
We turned that key up a little bit so that you could see, especially early in the film, so you could see what we were doing, so that you would know how to watch the film.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other thing about the technique that I should say is that these are not actors who are acting the roles of the people in the film. Literally, their faces have been reduced to this digital map that gets tracked over the face of the underlying character. So nothing about what is being said or done, every blink of an eye, every curl of a mouth, is all in the underlying footage. It's just been absorbing this other face. That's why you call it a face transplant earlier. I think that's really what it would be like. It's that original person controlling somebody else's face. That was a phenomenal discovery, to be able to do that and present a factual documentary, no alterations, except for the quality of the appearance of the face.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Works wonderful. And I was wondering about the two activists, Olga and David. Like, why would they not need protection? Why would they not have this face transplant? And are they safe?
Well, I offered everyone the opportunity to elect how they were going to be presented. Would they need a facial disguise? Would they need their voices disguised? There are many voices that are also changed in the film. And the activists almost across the board felt that the work that they were doing as activists was and should be above board. It should be something that is carried out by ordinary people in a civil society. And so that was kind of a first standard for them. And of course, and each individual had certain risks because of the work that they were doing. And David and Olga both elected to use their faces undisguised. Both of them explaining to me that they felt that their work had become so well known, at least by the people who would oppose them, that it had become a kind of a cat and mouse game anyway to continue doing their work without detection. They felt that appearing in the film would elevate their stature, their recognition, the recognition for the work that they're doing, and make them more safe, because it would be more risky for the Chechen security forces, for example, to move against them in cover of darkness. It also meant that they couldn't do the same work in the same way once the film came out, and they knew that as well. But they knew also, after that it had been 2.5 years by the time the film came out, that they had been doing that work, that it was time for them to rotate out and to find other aspects of this incredible hand-to-hand humanitarian work for them to be doing, and to bring in kind of fresher blood, fresher faces, people who would still be able to cross the unofficial border into Chechnya without detection.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So Olga is already in the film. She's already out of the country. She has to leave.
Unfortunately,
not because of the film, not because of the light that the film shed on their identities. But
Correct.
then David,
we follow her as she
yes,
country, right?
Yeah, and then David, what happened to him after the film came out? Could he continue working?
He has continued doing the work. He has not, to my knowledge, traveled back to Chechnya, although he has coordinated the efforts nonetheless in his continued position as the head of security for the Russian LGBT network. He has continued to stage these dramatic and urgent rescues and extractions of people. And so he's still serving on the front lines, only more as a kind of a strategist and a manager and kind of the kind of intellectual lead on these projects. And that he's doing that work every day. Just yesterday, two of the people that he had rescued over the summer had been discovered in a Western Russian city where they had been hiding, where he had stashed them as he was trying to find visas to get them out of the country. They were discovered there and brought back by Chechen authorities just yesterday. So international alarms have gone up. He has led the charge to try and intercept the car, for example, which he was trying to do yesterday without any success, unfortunately, and now trying to corral the international community into issuing intense political pressure on the governments in Russia and Chechnya to intervene to make sure these poor, very young men are protected before anything bad happens to them.
That's insane. So you're in touch with them basically still, and on a pretty much daily basis, or
absolutely. We became, and this is unusual for me in my long career as an investigative journalist, to become as intensely, genetically connected to the work that they were doing, and to embed, as I did for 2 years of filming, put me inside that network and made me understand and experience the same thing that they understood and experienced: the absolute terror of the threat of the Chechen officials in this campaign, which is a liquidation campaign to round up all LGBTQ Chechens and eliminate them from the Chechen bloodline. It's outrageous. It's horrifying. It is being done with impunity, and to experience that makes me, it certainly made me, an invested combatant in the entire experience. So I remain fully engaged in the work that they're doing.
Yes, and the viewers can somewhat experience that and identify with the cause through the footage that you have, the tortures and the amazing, brutal, well, not the right word, amazing, it's like horribly brutal footage that you got, which really serves the purpose in the film. And I was wondering, how did you get in possession of that footage, and how did you decide to put it in the film?
Well, the first thing that I learned as I began this reporting was that the Chechen government just was saying to anybody who asked that this wasn't happening. If it were happening, there would be evidence of it. There is no evidence. If it were happening, there would be victims coming forward. Nobody's coming forward. Well, nobody's coming forward because they were terrified. If they came forward, that they would, they barely escape. They would be re-inviting this kind of criminal targeting. And the Russian government repeated the same thing. Putin has said to anybody who calls up to inquire, as some world leaders have over the years, that there's no evidence, it's been denied, he accepts those denials. But what I learned from talking to the survivors is that every one of them who had been brought in, who had been abducted, who had been tortured, who had been nearly killed, some of them delivered to the doorstep of their families for dead, like believing that they were dead or would die imminently, that their assaults were all filmed, that there was always somebody on the edge of these torture scenes with a cell phone recording them, that there was evidence, that they collected the evidence themselves, actual forensic evidence of these crimes, and they were using them as trophies for themselves of the the kind of joyously collected of this horror that they were acting out. And so we, with the Russian LGBT network, set out to try and find that footage. And those are 3 or 4 examples that we included in the film of those trophy videos shot by the perpetrators. Yeah. You can hear them in one of them laughing as they're shooting and filming this, laughing and giggling, adding to the horror of what was happening. And because that was the experience of everybody you see in the film, we wanted to convey that experience to the viewer, and also to convert that footage that they had been shooting and denying that existed, to convert that into from these trophies into evidence, into actual forensic evidence that is that can be used in court and in fact will be used in court.
But are they public in any way, or are they out in the public, this footage? So how did you actually find them?
They were being shared amongst the leadership of the Chechen security forces over chat threads in Telegram and WhatsApp, and that's where we found them.
Okay.
And
somebody leaked it, or somebody had to. Yeah.
Exactly right. And so, once we were able to find like little areas of leakage in those networks, we were able to pull out some of this evidence.
Wow. And you said it's going to be used as evidence. Is it going to be in the court case of Maxim? Is it in front of the European court now? Because he was planning to take the case to European court.
Maxim's case is in front of the European court, and it's reaching its end stages. His case is based on the very specific allegations of that he has brought, and he has established a very strong body of evidence about what happened to him and when it happened to him and where he was held and how long he was held. So he didn't need this evidence, but we are working with the United Nations, which is beginning an in-depth investigation into the crimes against humanity that have been conducted in the name of the Chechen government and are still being conducted. So that's where we think that this evidence will have its most powerful implication.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other very strong storyline was Anya's escape. And she, by the end of the film, she basically disappears, and there's no knowledge of her whereabouts. Is it still like that, or do you know anything about her fate, what happened to her?
Well, we learned, just as we were going last year, about just a year ago, we were bringing the film to the Sundance Film Festival to premiere it. And just as we landed in Park City in Utah, we learned that she had made contact and that she was alive, that she had found her way to relative safety, but not safe enough. That's why she reached back around to the network. She needed their assistance further, but it was a great relief to know that she had managed the journey that she had set out for herself. We had lost touch with her for over a year, almost a year, I guess, almost a year, and that she, through her own, resourcefulness, was able to travel, was able to set herself up, and now she is being assisted again by the Russian LGBT network and the people who helped get her out of Chechnya in the first place. Wow. So it's a great story.
Yeah, it's great news.
So far. I mean, one she's so extremely young, and anyone who has lived through this kind of experience and this kind of utter rejection and the personal, emotional torment that entails has a huge journey ahead of them. And I know that's true for her. Just to find your way into adulthood, in exile from your people, from unable to speak again with any of your relatives because of the risk of danger that they represent to you, under the campaign of this Ramzan Kadyrov in Chechnya, who has enlisted and invested in every one of the citizens of Chechnya the responsibility to carry out these crimes. I just hope that she is able to find her way to some sort of kind of emotional safety once she finds her physical safe place.
Do you know if there's any improvement in the situation in Chechnya, or is it there's not going to be any change until Kadyrov is in power, right?
I think that's true. You know, one of the things we've always said is that if Putin wanted Kadyrov to stop this, he would just call him up and Kadyrov would stop this. Right. He is an extremely violent puppet of Putin's. But Putin is going the other direction. I mean, we've seen it in the last several weeks since the arrest of Navalny, that the crackdowns are just extreme. I mean, they're engaging now in a kind of a massive scale of incarceration throughout the country of anybody who's expressed any sort of opposition to Putin and Putin's regime. And that is always done in magnification in Chechnya, which is probably why the Chechen authorities were able to leave Chechnya and go and find these two young men yesterday with impunity, maybe even support from the Kremlin in their campaign to sop up people that they consider their enemies. So I think it's only gotten darker, and I think hopefully that I think we're starting to see the voices of liberalism and justice come to bear. I know you're talking about the European Court for Human Rights. The European Commissioner for Human Rights issued a call today demanding the safety and the safe return of the people who were kidnapped yesterday, demanding that their ability to see their attorney who is there in Chechnya trying to find them, to talk to them. And the U.S. State Department just backed that demand. So with the new administration in the U.S., hopefully we'll start to see some responsiveness around these issues.
What do you think a film like yours can achieve? What can be hoped to be achieved?
You know, the first thing I wanted to do was to get this news back in the kind of cultural and political conversation, you know, to get us talking about it again, to bring eyes of witnesses to this, to defy the Kremlin's allegation that there are no witnesses. We're all witnesses now. We've all seen this. This is something that can't be denied anymore. And so I want to kind of amplify the voices of the activists to continue bringing attention to this. Certainly, I'm hoping that people will support the work of activism there and in your own world around this and related subjects. And then finally, to help put pressure on governments. And I know the film has done that with the help of activists. It's created for them a tool, a key really to open up those doors with foreign governments and say, watch this film with us and then talk to us about how you can help. And I know that they have developed working relationships with countries across Western Europe and elsewhere, and even in the United States, through screenings of the film that have produced fruitful conversations for them.
It is so important work, and really just why documentaries exist is really the main reason to open up eyes about issues important like this. So thank you very much for making the film. My very last question would be about Maxim and his family. Like, are they doing well, and how are they safe, and where are they? If it's possible to say, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to compromise their safety in any ways.
Well, thank you for asking about them. I was just with with Maxime yesterday on Zoom. You know, nobody is ever three-dimensional anymore in anybody's life, right?
Yes.
And sadly, he until he finishes his legal battles with Russia, he and his entire family are still living in the shadows.
Okay.
They are still living in an undisclosed location, always a new location. They move regularly. They have been living like that for more than 2 years now, 3 years now, really. And that was something that they elected to do. They knew when they decided that they were going to take on this challenge singularly, as they have done, that they would be casting their lives into this, just this spiral of uncertainty. That's where they live. They haven't been able to work in those 3 years. They haven't been able to advance their careers. They haven't been able to, you know, put down roots in a new country, to learn a new language. They have put everything on hold to fight this fight, and I have such respect for them. And you know, you said that the purpose of a documentary and documentary filmmakers is to raise these difficult issues, but it's also to find inspiration. And you know, Maxime is one of the most heroic people I've ever met. His whole family, even, and there's nothing otherwise exceptional about them, except that they have put humanity first, and they're doing this because not because they want revenge or justice in their own case, but because they want this to stop. They want to make sure that no other young man or woman, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, in Chechnya loses their life because of this absolutely horrific campaign there. And it's been just an insane joy to be able to learn from them and to watch them and to be inspired by them and to see how just kind of purely, I don't know, how pure their sense of love is. I guess that's what it is. And for that, I'm so thankful. And I hope that comes across in the film. I hope people come away from the film feeling like they too could take all these years out of their lives to do something that would better humanity, and that they would know that they would have the capacity to withstand any backlash that would come from that kind of work.
Absolutely. And he's the one giving the face, literally, giving the face to the cause. And without him, it wouldn't be able to even consider the gravity of the situation. So
absolutely,
it's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for making this really important film and also to talking with us.
Well, thank you so much.
It was very nice to talk with you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Nézőinknek pedig nagyon köszönöm a figyelmet. Aki már látta a filmet, remélem, hogy érdekesnek találta a beszélgetést, és aki még nem látta, annak pedig kedvet csináltunk. A fesztivál végéig, március 10-éig meg tudják nézni a filmeket. További jó, tartalmas mozizást kívánok!